It's time to tune into. It's time to get hungry for. Let's talk wrestling on the Spinning Heel Kick podcast. It's time to tune into. It's time to get hungry for. Let's talk wrestling on the Spinning Heel Kick podcast.
It's another episode of the Spinning Heel Kick podcast. I'm your host, AJ. And as I promised, I don't break promises. My promise was to release 2 episodes this week of the Spinning Heel Kick podcast, and that is what I'm doing. I posted a status a few days ago, back on Saturday, where I had promised that I would release 2 episodes this week, and both episodes are very special to me. There's a theme of the episodes that I'm releasing this week, and the theme is Indian pro wrestlers. And the reason why I decided to release 2 episodes with Indian wrestlers is because the major Indian holiday Diwali is coming up next week, which is a celebration of lights. So in my way of celebrating lights, I'm speaking to pro wrestlers that are Indian that I think are superstars, and they're gonna shine bright really soon. So on Monday I released the episode with the Bollywood Boys, who are the first Global Force Wrestling Tag Team Champions, and everybody is talking about them. They're buzzing. Their hype is, going real up and is well deserved. Great guys that, are very humble and very passionate about the world of professional wrestling. And man, they're going to take over. I'm telling you guys, look out for the Bollywood Boys because you're going to hear their names quite a lot. This next episode is with Warrior Samara, who is, I'm pretty sure she's the only Indian female professional wrestler in the States and possibly in other countries. And she is a very, very passionate woman for the world of pro wrestling. You can just hear it in her voice when she talks about wrestling. She's so passionate about it. And, the way she talked during our interview was very inspiring. So I'm really excited for this episode to be released so that other folks can listen to it and hear the passion that Warrior Samara has for the business. And, she's very open about the struggles that she goes through, chasing this dream of being a wrestler. Some of her family members don't approve of her being involved in pro wrestling, yet she's still going out there and still trying to do what she loves and what she believes can make her a successful person. And it's not even about, becoming a successful person. It's about putting yourself in a position where you're happy and you're doing something that you enjoy, which will lead to success. So it was really cool sitting down and talking to her. She's such a humble person, very genuine. She was a sweetheart, like legit sweetheart. So it was really cool talking to her. And for people that don't know much about the Indian culture, so there's this kind of like stigma when it comes to the females that are part of Indian families. It's kind of like, you go to school, you do this, you do that, you get married at a very young age, you have kids, you help your husband out, and that's it. You're not really pushed to become something huge, other than a doctor or an engineer or something along those lines. And talking to Warrior Samara, who, had the same thing going on, like that's what she was expected to do. Like you're expected to be married at a certain age, you're expected to become a certain career path, to go down a certain career path. And she did not do any of them. She's chasing her own path and her own dreams. And although like people are not approving of it, she's still fighting on. And while she's reaching success in the ring, I'm sure that her family will start seeing it and start appreciating what she's doing. And she's standing up for herself, and that's really cool to see. And it's very inspiring for other women out there who feel like they were, they're in the same position that she might have, could have been in. So super cool to talk to her. We're going to go ahead and jump into the interview. As always, you can find me on Spinning Heel Kick Pod at Twitter. Instagram is at the Spinning Heel Kick Podcast. Facebook page, once again, is facebook.com/Spinning Heel Kick Podcast. There's a lot of exciting things coming for the Spinning Heel Kick Podcast, I promise you. I'm working real hard. I've done 3 interviews this week. A lot of exciting episodes are coming along. We're gonna take this. We're taking this seriously, and you're gonna hear the Spinning Heel Kick podcast be top-notch podcast show to look out for. So, keep working with me here. Keep, joining me every week for the new episodes. And I promise you we're going to become successful. We're going to become a major thing. So here it is, interview with Warrior Samara. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you guys feel inspired by it, because that's my goal. We're here to motivate the folks that feel like they can't reach their dreams. Warrior Samara agrees with me completely about that. And hear her story right here on the Spinning Heel Kick podcast. And we're on with the Spinning Heel Kick podcast. I have a very special guest. She's a one of a kind in the world of pro wrestling. I got Ender Mudhi in the building. How you doing, Ender?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing amazing. It's super special to have you on the show today because, like I was talking to you earlier, I don't think there's an Indian female pro wrestler out there in the States or even in Canada or anything that I haven't heard of yet out there wrestling. So that's a huge deal for you, right?
It is. It's a huge kind of not a weight. It's kind of an honor and a privilege to carry that and to represent girls and women of Indian culture, and more specifically the Punjabi culture, because it is so restrictive, especially to women. And I feel really great to be able to, kind of break through the cultural barrier and pursue a passion that, the typical Indian family wouldn't be very supportive of.
And that's something like I understand completely too. Is like growing up, we're kind of, I think most families are, most kids are part of, like, a lot of families are told to become something like an engineer or a doctor, something in the medical field. So like,
or a lawyer, or all three.
Yeah, exactly. Be all three at the same time, if that's possible. So like, how did you, like, we're kind of jumping into it. Like, how did you come to the point where you are right now, where you wanted to do pro wrestling, and how did that, go over with your parents?
So, it still completely has over with them, taking baby steps to working on it. But I was going to be a doctor. I was a pre-med student, and I was going to get married at 25 and have a family and make them really proud. But you can only pursue the dreams that your parents and your family want to live vicariously through you for so long. I can take it. I've always been passionate about sports and athleticism, and I grew up a diehard wrestling fan. Like, I would get yelled at and, get in a bunch of trouble for skipping homework and skipping going to the temple to stay home and watch wrestling. And I didn't know how to go about doing it until just like last year. I would say I went to a big time wrestling show in December of last year and found out that I could train and become what I've always wanted to be.
How did your love for pro wrestling come along when you're, like, were you always a lifelong wrestling fan as, like, young as 4 or 5, or, like, how did that come along?
Oh yeah, so we lived in a big joint family, and my dad's brother and I would watch it together. I remember, like, he was watching it one day, and I was really young. I don't know how old I was, but I was really young, and I saw it, and I just remember thinking, wow, this is so cool. And then I saw girls on TV, and I remember thinking, China, like, she's rolling with these big dudes, and she's got these huge muscles. And little did I know at the time about supplements and steroids and whatnot, but I just thought she was so cool because she was beating up guys. And I grew up around guys, and I'd get beat up, so I thought it was just amazing that she was in there doing what she was doing, and I wanted to be just like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like, is there a particular moment that you saw, like, other than just seeing China, that, like, brought you in more? Because, like, I remember, and I always tell this story to, like, people that ask me how I fell in love with wrestling, is, like, I remember, like, I had a curfew of 8 p.m., and I think I was, like, 5 or 6 years old, and I remember I was going to be a rebel that night. I was like, I'm not going to go to sleep. I'm going to sneak out of my room, watch TV. And I did exactly that. I snuck out of my room, I turned on the TV, and it happened to be on Monday Night Raw. And it's Monday Night Raw's first time I've ever seen pro wrestling, and I see Triple H. I don't remember if it was Triple H or Shawn Michaels, but somebody hits Undertaker with a chair, and Undertaker starts bleeding. And it was a tag team match between Taker, Mankind versus DX. And like at that moment, I was like, this is cool, and I've been addicted ever since. So was there any moment for you other than just seeing China on TV that made you like drawn into the program?
So for some reason, and I mean, so everybody loves The Rock. I was just obsessed with him, and I don't know what it is, but I think it's that he was just so entertaining, and he was something I had never seen before, and he made me laugh, and he made me feel like I wanted to like murder his opponent when he was getting beat up. And The Rock, watching him made me want to be on TV and do what he was doing. There's not a specific moment that I remember, but I remember just like all the feelings and the roller coaster of emotions that I went on watching
The Rock, hands down, is one of the greatest promos ever, man. He just has you laugh into tears. Do you have a favorite Rocky match? Putting you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot.
Hey, that's what comes along being on a podcast.
So and I know it's like everyone has a favorite match. I have memories of what I felt watching all those matches. I never remembered specific matches per se. Like I know, what matches I like better than others, but what sticks with me is the feelings that I experienced while watching him perform. And that's why he's been my favorite. He's been able to invoke the most feeling in me. Others have too, but just the way I got behind him, I didn't get behind anyone else.
That's probably like any better answer I could have ever got if you did name a match. That response was like so deep. I was like, okay, that works. That's super cool. So you grew up with the Attitude Era of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a great era of wrestling it was. Did you ever watch WCW?
I did, but not as much. I was such a diehard WWE girl. Like I was like, no, WWE all the way.
Yeah, that's the same way I felt too. Like I tried to watch WCW, but it just that WWF, WWE, like I was just brought into that.
Oh yeah.
So The Rock is your favorite wrestler of all time?
Yeah.
Nice. I always have. Whenever I tell people my favorite wrestler of all time, it kind of throws them off. But I have to go with X-Pac.
Oh yeah. I can see why.
X-Pac is my guy. So growing up, like, was it always part of your mindset that you were gonna be a pro wrestler? Like it was that or nothing else, or did you have other things that you had in mind? And when did it hit you that you wanted to change the thought of being a pro wrestler or having that dream and now going after it and making it happen?
So growing up, I thought it was like an impossible dream to ever be a pro wrestler. I would think about it. I would create this character in my head. And I would create, like matches and create feuds and storylines. But at the end of the day, I would have to come to terms with, reality of, my family and what they would approve of. So it was something I dreamt of, but I never thought that I could actually pursue it because it's not a legit career. That's what was put into my head. Like athleticism is not a legit lifestyle. The only way to be successful in life is through education and degrees and, being a doctor or a lawyer or engineer. So, it took a long time to finally kind of, as I say, listen to that inner voice, to that inner calling, and just pursuing what you feel like you're meant to do. And I'll tell you, the first time I got into a ring, a wrestling ring, it just felt like, okay, this is it. Like, this is what has been missing in my life. This is what I'm meant to do, and I know I can make it.
Yeah,
nothing else felt legit anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to be a doctor, and I was pursuing it, and I was like, yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to be a doctor, and, I'm going to make good money. I'm going to help people. But I've never felt so passionate about anything before. So
And that's what life is all
I think I'm
about
doing
too.
the right thing.
Like the fact that you had to be in that ring to finally, realize, hey, this is it. Like I need to make this happen. And like life is all about
Yeah.
reaching your dreams and like whatever it is that you're really passionate about and that's gonna make you happy at the end of the day. You got to go for it. And that's awesome that that's what you did.
Yeah, and it sucks that in our culture, you're not really encouraged to pursue your dreams. That's not really, it's kind of frowned upon, especially for girls, And if there are any girls out there listening, I guess, bound by any cultural barrier, like it can be done, and your happiness is worth breaking those cultural barriers. And yeah, sure, your family may be upset at you for a while, but they'll get over it because they're your family and they love you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like family always ends up understanding, kids are gonna do what they want to do, and they, for their happiness. I think they do come to a point where they're like, okay, well, let's just be happy for them because this is what they're really passionate about. And I'm sure that's what's gonna happen with your
Right.
family as well. Even though they might struggle with the idea of their daughter being a pro wrestler, especially with
Yeah.
our, with our culture, like that's very.
Yeah, I think they'll come around.
Yeah, no, for sure, and we'll send this podcast episode to your dad and have him listen to it, and and he can hear your passion about it, right? Because you never know what can change. But like, it's
Right.
really interesting. Like, it really, like having you on the podcast is really, it's a personal thing for me because like I have so many female cousins, and I can see there is a favoritism in our culture where the guys are more favorited. They're more like hyped up.
Yeah.
They're more encouraged
Absolutely.
to do things outside of like doctors or engineers and stuff. And like with the women, it's kind of like you get married at a young age, you have kids, you work a decent job, and you help out with your husband. And
right.
you're going against everything, which is super cool because you're just like, I'm an independent woman. I'm gonna go do my thing. I'm gonna go kick ass in the ring, and I'll come home to like whatever, right? So like how is that for you, like adjusting and being known as the girl in the family that's going to do something different? Because do you feel like the other women in your family are they encouraging you to do it, or they're kind of like, hey, you're not supposed to do that, like just be normal?
So like the older generation, I guess, in my family, they've kind of backed off. Like I don't really see them much anymore, and mostly because I'm wrestling every weekend, but like even when they're around, they kind of know. It's just awkward. It's weird. Like they obviously do not approve, but the younger generation, like the younger girls and cousins and stuff, they think it's cool. They, I get a lot of support from them, and that's okay. Like I don't mind so much being weird and awkward around relatives. It's just it gets a little bit difficult with my mom and dad who are not supportive at all right now. Luckily, I have great grandparents who are always supportive and always behind me no matter what. So, that really helps.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. Like grandparents are usually the ones that are most supportive of their grandchildren, even if the parents are kind of like backing off away from whatever it is. But I really hope that your parents go to one of your shows and see you kick ass, and they're gonna be like, "That's my daughter," and they're gonna be up there with signs and stuff at the following show. So I really wish everything works out for you.
That would be cool.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I think it will happen one day for sure. So going forward, you go to this BTW show and you're like amazed that, oh shit, like I can actually train and become a pro wrestler. You took that application or you did the application process, and then when did you start training?
I started training January 17th of this year, 2015.
So you've barely been in the business for like not even a year yet.
Yeah, I'm really green.
Yeah, green as shit, as they say.
Right.
So and it's cool to talk to you right now at this point where you haven't been at a full year of being in the business, because I think one day we're gonna look back at this 2 to 3 years from now, and you're wrestling for major promotions and getting your name out there even more than what it is now, and you're gonna be like, wow, like I came a long way. So with this first year of training, like what's some of the struggles and sacrifices that you've made to stay tough and get through all this training so that you can continue, accomplishing goals that you're setting for yourself?
I wouldn't say that I've sacrificed anything. It's more of a choice that I made for my own happiness and for what I want. I, my schedule kind of prioritizes wrestling. Whenever I can take a booking or I can get an extra day of training in or hitting the gym, that's my priority. Of course, I go to work and take care of my responsibilities and everything, but I think the biggest struggle has been just the mental part of it, and especially, girl. In Northern California, there aren't very many girls to wrestle. So I've gotten to know the girls in the circuit, and I love working with them, and but it's hard getting bookings everywhere because there aren't very many girls, and there's also that stigma that follows women's wrestling, and it's so hard to put on a good match and have it be recognized as a good match by the boys, as they would say, or the locker room, or your trainers, or and not that that's what matters. As long as the audience loves it or enjoys it or is even slightly entertained by it, I feel like we're doing our job. But it's just kind of an internal struggle for me because I want to be the best that I can be, and I want to put on 5-star matches for the audience, for the locker room, and for my trainers, for everyone I train with who has been extremely supportive. But then I have to remember, like, my first match was in June, so maybe I expect too much of myself, but I just want to be the best that I can be.
How'd you feel going into that first match when you were told like this was about to happen? Like how was the feels during that time?
Geez, it was a roller coaster. So it wasn't even in state. I actually went to Montana with a couple of people from BTW. There's a BTW promotion on the East Coast that came to Montana and did a show, but it was scary because no one else I knew really besides the girl I was working was there. But once my music hit and I got out there and the audience reacted, it was just amazing. And that very first match that I had, I remember just thinking, oh my God, this is so much fun and I don't want to stop.
Who'd you wrestle in your first match?
I wrestled Beatrice Domino. She's still at BTW.
Oh, she's great. I think I just seen her a few weeks back, and her gimmick is pretty intense.
Yeah, it is. It's intense.
So, training wise, so you were training with big time wrestling, and then moved on to a new training facility or training camp. You want to talk about that transition and the trainer that you worked with?
Yeah, so originally the reason I went to BTW was, of course, Bailey, the NXT Women's Champion, now formerly trained at BTW under Jason Styles. And if you read up on her, she has talked about Jason Styles and how great of a trainer and mentor he was to her. So I thought that was the best place for me to be. Unfortunately, Jason left Big Time Wrestling back in about May of this year, and he recently opened his own promotion, California Lucha Libre. It's at Arena Hayward, California, and I felt like following Jason there was the best thing for me personally. It would be the best thing for my development as a wrestler, as, a worker, and, I just felt like that's my best chance to make it, is if I go train with Jason. He's the best trainer that I've ever had, and he taught everyone that I knew at BTW, so it only made sense for me to go there.
Yeah, and he has a hell of a track record. I mean, Bailey's the top female wrestler right now in the States or in the world actually.
Yeah.
She's killing it.
Yeah, she is.
So what's some of
and it's great to.
What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
So what's some of the best advice that Jason had given you, or like what's some advice that other wrestlers or your peers have given you that that you take to heart and you utilize in your everyday life as a pro wrestler?
The best advice I've been given is, and I think this applies to life in general, not just wrestling, is just to never stop learning. There's always something to learn, and there's always something that you can take. Even if you spend like 5 minutes in the ring, there's an opportunity to learn something and take it and apply it to, say your next match. With Jason, he always tells me I'm too hard on myself, and he said just this past weekend that I'm my biggest critic, and it's I'm getting in the way of myself by doing that. So I'm still I'm working on that. I realized that getting frustrated with myself is just a hindrance in my growth and development. But he's very patient, and he knows how to explain exactly what you need to hear to make it better.
Yeah, and that's
what I mean. Like,
absolutely, and that's the type of trainer you should have. Like, I'm sure you kind of look at him and you're able to feel comfortable to ask personal questions or like things that are going on other than wrestling. Kind of having like that role model, and I think those make the best trainers.
He's definitely like a mentor. Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think that I feel very comfortable and very safe learning things from him. And if there's some like crazy move I want to learn, he's the guy that I want to ask, because I feel like, I'll be safe and I'll be taught right.
What's the craziest move that you asked and want to learn?
Yeah, I haven't thought about anything super crazy yet. I'm working into a moonsault, and I know that's not like extremely crazy, but for someone like me who never thought that I'd be able to do what I'm doing now as far as wrestling, that's like it's a big step. So that's my more immediate goal, to learn a good and proper moonsault, and we'll move on to more crazy things.
Like, I eventually want to be able to see you do like a shooting star press or something.
Yeah, for sure.
I could see you doing it. I could see it happening for sure. So you've gone through the training. You got a few matches under your belt. How would you describe your ring style? Like, what are you trying to like? Is there a particular wrestler that you grew up watching that you kind of want to, get their style from, or like, are you trying to create your own? And like, how would you describe your style in the ring, and how are you trying to make it different from any other female pro wrestler? Because like, female wrestling is starting to get heated up. So like, how are you gonna make sure you're different from everybody else in the ring?
So I've really, really admired the wrestling styles of Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and it'd be great if I could model a style after theirs. So at California Lucha Libre, we also offer lucha style training, and I've been learning lucha, and I love it. So if I could integrate American style wrestling and lucha style wrestling and create something different, I think I need more time and more experience to figure out exactly what kind of style is going to fit me. But I'm getting there. I'm feeling it out. And I definitely want a style that's unique to me. So we'll see what that entails.
Yeah, and you kind of nailed it in the coffin with saying that it comes with the experience. So like, the more you're getting your feet, because you're still getting your feet wet, but the more you get more matches under your belt, the more experience you have, you'll have that ring style that fits you, and it's just gonna happen organically. I think that's the best way that
Yeah.
happens. And I love the fact that you mentioned Eddie Guerrero, Benoit, and Dean Malenko being like the wrestlers that you're looking at when it comes to your style, because
Yeah.
like, to be honest, like, I didn't appreciate their ring work until I got a lot older. And like,
Yeah.
they were badass, like, especially like Benoit and Malenko. I always appreciated Guerrero just because I think he was entertaining, like, as his promos and just his character in general. But like guys like Benoit
Yeah.
and
Oh,
Malenko
definitely.
who were so quiet, you know, didn't really cut promos too much, and if they did, it was just like But like their ring work
Uh-huh.
spoke for themselves, so like I didn't appreciate that until I got a lot older. Are you watching like all different wrestling? Like, do you follow WWE? Do you follow New Japan, like Ring of Honor, stuff like that?
So mostly WWE and NXT. I've watched New Japan and Lucha Underground, but it's hard to keep up with everything. The easiest thing to keep up with is WWE, and while I appreciate all the other promotions, um, since WWE is my goal, I feel like I should focus on following WWE style wrestling, specifically NXT, because if that's where I want to go, I kind of got to watch for what they want or what they're looking for.
Yeah, and right now NXT is the hot spot for a lot of indie wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're picking up everybody. So
Yeah, and it's kind of intimidating because they're, swooping up talent left and right. So it's like, I kind of feel like, oh gosh, I better hurry up and get there.
yeah, no, I can see why you would feel that way, but I mean, don't put that extra pressure on yourself. You know, make sure you kind of go with the flow and
Yeah.
make sure you're on top of your game and you feel confident enough. But I'm sure they're gonna look at you because, like we mentioned earlier, is that you're rare. You know, being an Indian female pro wrestler, like, you're gonna have a lot of looks at you. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So, when it comes to the gimmick, and I talked about this on the previous episode with the Bollywood boys. When you're
Mm-hmm.
a particular race, or you have a cultural background that's different from anybody else, you kind of get stuck with this gimmick that kind of makes fun of your culture. You get stuck with the stereotype. When it comes to your gimmick, what are you shooting for? Are you shooting to represent and then take it in the ring, or like what's your ideal goal as your gimmick as you grow older in the world of professional wrestling?
So initially, I wanted to stray completely away from my culture and race and who I am, and because it's just been done so much, and I didn't want to ride the coattails of my cultural background to get over. Um, but as I'm, finding myself as a character more and more, I realize that it's an asset. And I don't completely want to use being Punjabi and Indian and whatever, but Samara is inspired by the warrior aspect of Sikhism, the religion that, is so well known in Punjab, and I'm sure most Punjabi people follow Sikhism, and that's what I was born and raised in. And the thing that stuck with me the most were all the stories I was told growing up of like the battles and the wars that the people in India faced, and it was really inspiring because they sounded so cool and so strong and fearless and powerful. So that, and then watching Xena as a kid too, wanting to be a warrior princess just like her. So that's kind of what I'm going for with the character, and it's still in the works. I'm still figuring out who she is as I figure out who I am in the world of wrestling.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like, I love the thought process of what you're thinking of as your gimmick as you get more experience. And I think something like that, it's not something we've seen before. I think. I mean, obvious with the
Mm-hmm.
cultural background as well, but like, I think something like that can definitely get over. Do you have a particular choice of wanting to be a face or a heel?
Um, so I struggled with being heel because I don't think I'm a mean enough person in real life to pull it off.
You're too damn
I think
likable.
I'm getting better at it.
Just looking at you, it's like, oh, she's so lovable.
Yeah, so it's hard, but I think I'm getting better at it. I just have to figure out what kind of feelings to channel. But I do enjoy being a face, just because I think it fits well with the character. I want to be a character that is inspiring to children and girls, especially who are, like I mentioned before, bound by cultural restraints, who feel like they can't follow their dreams because it's just not, it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So I think being a face would be the best way to kind of connect with people in that regard.
For sure, and I can definitely see that working for you too as a face. Like nowadays, it seems like being a face is a lot harder than being a heel. So that's a good challenge for you to get over as a face.
Yeah.
So
challenging.
What are some things that you do currently in your training that are like that you feel will be keys to your success?
I think if I can stay as dedicated as I am now, or even more so, as I continue training, that's going to really help my success. Like family members have gotten really upset with me because I flake on them because I don't want to miss training, or I took a booking over going to a family party. And just before, like, I prioritize wrestling and training, and I'd rather go to the gym than go hang out and have dinner with friends, because I feel like that's what I need to do to get ahead, get better, and make it to reach my goal. If I can just keep doing that and become even more dedicated, hopefully I'll get there.
And you definitely will, because like, my podcast, like, I talked about it earlier with you before we started recording, is like I created it to put focus on indie wrestlers. And because I felt like, man, these indie wrestlers, including yourself, like, you guys work so hard, a lot harder than I think some of the mainstream wrestlers are doing, but you guys don't get that shine as much. And I wanted to bring focus on that, but like the theme of my podcast has really been about, what are you doing to reach your dreams? Because dreams are possible. Like, you can reach your dreams as long as you stay hungry and motivated. Those are the two words that I use a lot on the podcast. And like,
yeah,
I work with the youth, and I've noticed that the generations that are, I'm 25, so I feel like the generations younger than I am, they kind of lack the motivation to reach their dreams. Like, sure, they have dreams, but they just don't have that motivation to go out there and make it happen. Whether it's either they're discouraged, or they feel like it's just not possible to happen. So I really took this podcast and kind of turned it around, where I like hearing, like somebody like yourself who's going through this process right now of reaching her dream and furthering it, and like hearing you talk about it, like I can feel your passion, and it's very inspiring. And I hope all the listeners out there, feel the same way, because whether you know it or know it at all, or maybe you'll realize it later, like the things that you're saying and your story that you're sharing, there's probably like tons of little girls out there and little boys that are listening and saying, whoa, like if she can make it happen, even though there's some challenges, I mean, I can make it too. And I think it's super cool, and I really appreciate you like being pretty open about the struggles that you're going through currently, because you want to reach your dreams and becoming a successful professional wrestler.
Oh, thank you. That's really great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanna get into some fun stuff right now. We talked a lot about pro wrestling and training. Other than wrestling, like what are you into? Like, what's I'm a big believer in self-care. We all work hard. We all get caught up in our jobs and like other things. But what is it that you enjoy, where you're just kicking back and saying, I feel so relaxed? Other than wrestling, you can't use wrestling as an answer.
Okay. So I really like hanging out with the small, like, group of people that come to know through wrestling. So it's kind of related to wrestling, but I love hanging out, on the weekend or for shows, and just relaxing with the people you put in the work with. Like we all sweat together, we bleed together, we go train together at the gym, and we have a good time. And like we talk about wrestling, but I love doing that on the weekend. And I like having time for myself too. Like it's great to come home sometimes and just sit in my room by myself and reflect on like everything that's going on in life right now. And I feel like I'm being given so many opportunities, and like being on this podcast, like it's great because I feel like it's an opportunity to reach out to people and hopefully inspire other, kids from the generation before ours, or after ours, sorry, to work hard and go for their dreams. Um, and I like reading. I do that, and I don't know, I'm kind of simple. I think I find the most enjoyment working hard in the gym, in the ring, and yeah, I don't know, watching TV, I guess.
What are you watching on Netflix right now?
So everything's gone. Like all the shows that I watch. Okay, so I watched Pretty Little Liars. That's
Dude,
a girl I know, but it's
on
gone.
that
I'm
show.
waiting for it to come back.
I'm only on season 3.
I really like
season 2. Don't spoil anything for me.
You're
I'm
on season 1?
trying to figure out who A is.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, you got to catch up.
Like for a shoot, like I literally like put on an episode just because I was so bored, and I was like, let me try it out. Literally, I've been hooked ever since that first episode. Like I'm team team Arya.
Yeah, team Arya. Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah, no, for sure. What are some other things that you were watching?
Orange is the New Black, but they come out like with 12 episodes once a year, so it's like.
Oh, I know, it's the worst.
Yeah. So what I used to do before wrestling was Muay Thai, kickboxing, and I quit because I wanted to wrestle, but I do kind of miss it, and so that's kind of been what I've been thinking about. Like maybe if I could once or twice a week go kickbox, it'd be great to just relieve stress. And again, that's more physical stuff, but I really have fun.
I think that's great because you can make that into your ring work, right? Like, do you feel like you can like intervene those together?
Yeah, and I have. I kind of do some of my little Muay Thai tricks here and there.
Nice. I think that would definitely go over as well. So we're coming down to the end of the podcast, and once again, I really want to appreciate the fact that I know you have a busy life, so taking the time to talk with me about your career so far, your very young career, but it seems like you sound like a young grizzled vet, which is super cool to hear you talk and like share your stories about the struggles and such. And I know that your story is going to inspire others, and I really hope you know that.
Thank you.
And I you have the future ahead of you, and I have a strong feeling that we're going to see you. I'm knocking on wood, but seeing you on NXT and doing the exact gimmick that you have planned out for yourself. So I wish you nothing but success. Where can fans reach you at?
So I have a Facebook page. It's kind of new, a page. It's Warrior Samara. And I have a Twitter and Instagram by the same name, at Warrior Samara. Also, if anyone out there is interested in coming and checking out Arena Hayward, California Lucha Libre, we have a Facebook page, Arena Hayward, Twitter and Instagram, California Lucha Libre. So, check those out for sure.
There you go, folks. Warrior Samara. She's the next big thing, and you heard it first here. So watch out. She's going to be taking over the world of professional wrestling real soon. Thank you for listening. And thank you once again, Samara, for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great.